Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the Board of Public Utilities Policy Review Committee meeting for October 18th, 2023. Roll call please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Here.
Bryant,
Here.
Groneman.
Here.
You have a quorum for the committee.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda has been approved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. With that, I'm confident that we're going to get right into the customer service policy. Mr. Johnson, I don't know if you have any opening remarks for it or you do as well.
Well, I know that. I guess the opening question is, I'm not sure what all board has on its mind and how long it's going to take the board to do this. So today we only have an hour scheduled. I don't know how long that's going to take to get through the entire thing. So I guess the first question is, how do you want to go about scheduling future meetings, and does it make sense to have a series of meetings? Or does it make sense to have block out a section of time on some other day to have a wider window to kind of get through everything at one time? So it's just kind of again, I don't know. Staff has gone through, we made some adjustments and changes. I'm not sure once we go, I guess, line for line through this, what other changes you may have in mind, and then we'll take across. I guess is we're going to spend a lot of time explaining and trying to justify what we have there, at the same time make sure we give the board committee proper amount of time to be able to at least you guys get your thoughts out, and then we can have conversations around that too. So.
And I don't know if anyone wants it. I have red line copies with staff's proposed changes. Then I have it if you want them without the red line. And also the same with the fee schedule, if anyone wants.
Is it the same as what was sent out to us? Or has
Yes.
it been changed?
Red line.
It's the same.
Yeah, the only thing that has been changed is the proposed fee schedule. There was something we saw near.
That's this one.
Yeah, well, that's the one that was, so this one is updated from the one that was sent to. us.
Yeah, I mean, this is the red line.
The fee schedule.
Yeah, so.
I'll have the red line.
Fee schedule.
Yeah,
Thank you.
got a copy. But
Just some minor changes.
Yeah, very nice.
So my guess would be on this, that this is gonna be a multiple meeting. To work through this, and as I started working through the things that I saw on it. A lot of this is going to take a larger conversation, so I think that. For our purpose as the committee would be identifying the areas that we feel are okay, just to, if we want to make slight adjustments to it or suggestions of adjustments to it for the whole board. But there's going to be areas that it's going to be like larger conversations. These might even turn into work session conversations, because one of them to me is probably going to be the credit worthiness check that we do. I think that, there's a lot of things that have changed in the last, 3 or 4, 5, 6 years. So I think that it's a good time to really sit down and think about the fees, think about the charges. And I mean, it's going to be something that is going to require the whole board to agree on. And it's going to require staff to remind us of the financial impact that each of these will have on the overall health of the utility. So I think it's going to be I think like for this purpose of this meeting, I think we're going to mostly try to go through and identify typos, wording and stuff, and then pull out sections and say, I think this section needs to be a work topic. So.
Okay, and I think Rob,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you, depending on how you want to go through there, you can let us know where your deeper conversation
I will.
may be, so that we can at least make sure we're focused on that.
Most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. Because there'll be spots that'll be like, I think this needs to go to a bigger, you
Okay,
know,
okay.
and Rose and Tom probably.
Yep,
will
I
have
agree,
the same
agree,
kind of thing.
agree.
Well, I think if staff would just go through and make their presentation on what they see needs to be changed. and
Okay.
We can look at that. And if we've got any questions at that time, we'll ask those questions. And if it needs further review, then
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, and I think, first of all, I think kudos to staff for all of the effort that you all have put into this. I know that this is not an easy undertaking. And, you guys have put a lot of time and thought into it, and so thank you. And thank you for getting it out to this committee far in advance. I know everybody's afraid of my red lines to it, so I don't think that's maybe the most productive way to go about it. To Jeff's point, I think there's gonna be, you know, themes that come up here where bigger conversations are gonna have to be had. But, you know, Jeff, to your point, you know, multiple meetings, you know, I see that, and I don't see enough. We don't have enough Wednesdays left in this year. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
And. I
And they
mean,
may not be subsequent meetings to each other. It may be, we do a meeting, you know, a couple just to go over the nuts and bolts.
Mhm.
And then come back and say, okay, we need to get into the fine details, and that's gonna be, you know, I know like on some of them, I just don't, you know, have gone fairly smoothly. I don't see this one being one that gets turned quickly. I think there's a lot that needs to be really thought about, what we're gonna do.
Agreed, and I also agree with your point that, I know what the purpose of this committee is, but at the same time, it's probably gonna be more efficient to have a bigger board conversation on a lot of this stuff anyway. And so, Bill, you know, your recommendation that, you know, we set aside maybe a larger, you know, block of time, a workshop of some kind or whatever. I don't know what the committee's thoughts are on that, but, you know, and I'm not even saying we could complete it in one workshop, right, a multi-hour workshop, but we might be able to knock out bigger portions if we go that route versus, you know, serial meetings, if that makes sense. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I would even be willing to, you know, forego one of the committee meetings and take that hour of committee and add it to work session to make a 2-hour work session so that 1 hour of it is spent, you know, basically committee work, but committee work as a board. Sometimes we may just have to do that to get more of a consensus on it, because some of these things, the three of us can, you know, extrapolate what we believe, but then it's still going to come down to they're big enough issues, and this was one of the top items that were on the board's strategic. So we really need to make sure that this one is.
Every one of you said this was your number one priority.
No,
That's right.
That's why I try to be nice. But anyway, this is that important. That This is not something I don't want to rush through this.
Yeah.
I want to get it right.
Go ahead, Tom.
I would just, you know, the purpose of the committee is to go through and make recommendations to the full board. I don't know that, or we're gonna have the full board come into the meetings. Let's just start out with having the full board here.
Well, to me,
I certainly invited the rest of the board to this meeting.
Yeah,
Okay, they could have been, they could have came.
I know, but I mean, 2 of them are just not available tonight, so, I mean, for the entirety of the.
If you want to do that, we can get all this to the rest of the board. The only question I have is, there's 3 of you that are going to have ideas. We invite 3 other ideas in. My hope is we don't get bogged down too much, with having 6 people that we're trying to communicate with at one time.
I mean, as an alternative, if we can try to do it as the committee goes through on some of these finer details and makes our recommendations of changes, and then offer up both, you know, into a meeting with the entire board, so they have time to read it and go through it and then say, these, this is what it currently says, and this is what, we're proposing, or someplace in the middle, at least get the conversation. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. This one here, I just think this is not gonna be a slam dunk.
Well, and I think that we all would agree that, this particular board policy, the associated fees. This is one of the things that impacts the entirety of our customer base. And, when I came to the board in 2020, you guys were completing a review at that time. And, I think that's when the last, review of this has been. And we have been through a pandemic since then, and we've done a lot of different things, during that time. And, to your point, Jeff, I mean, the entirety of the board agreed that this is their number one priority, and this is something we want to make sure that we all try to get right. Right. And so, I love a workshop idea. But I'm certainly not opposed to making recommendations out of the committee like we normally would. But maybe this committee needs to commit to, at least a workshop or something like that, so we have more time rather than, because it's like, look, if we set a goal for ourselves tonight, it's like, okay, we'll get through the first 6 sections, and by that, I mean like little sub-paragraphs.
Yeah.
Because, right, because we
It's
want to
gonna
make sure we
take-
get it
yeah.
right. It's gonna take that kind of time.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Okay.
Bill, you have any thoughts?
Well, we can be flexible, just how flexible can the board be? And I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other, whether the committee works through it and then reports back, or we get the whole board together. My only comments earlier is reserving time in order to either work through the committee and then the board, or work through the larger group as a whole. And I think we can adapt on our side and adjust on our side for whatever you guys want to do.
Well, I mean, it's October. The reality is we probably wouldn't be ready, my belief is probably January before we'd be ready, maybe a late December, but January that we'd be ready to actually sit down as a whole board and kind of look through it. Because I think it's going to take us, 2, maybe 3 meetings to go through all this. And we can go in with the approach that we are going to try to come up with a definable alternate solution if there's anything that we, don't see match up on, and then present that to the board. And then we can bring the whole board together, and it'd only be one session that would be
So
required.
for the sake of time today, why don't we do like Tom suggested? And we'll walk through
Mhm.
the changes. And then if you guys have any questions, stop us along the way. We'll try to clarify the meaning behind some of these changes,
Okay,
or the things that haven't changed. If you have questions there,
all right.
let us know. But at least we'll get started, while you guys are, or maybe after the meeting, having some thoughts about how do we go after this.
I would just say at the outset, because we all know that I'm the most difficult person to deal with on this. I will not add to this evening's conversation sort of my smaller items, the non-substantive items, right? That Angie, I'll send you either way. Just so as not to bog us down.
I would like to
Okay?
see your list though.
Oh, it's not a list.
Well, I would like to see all of your red lines, okay?
It's-
So we work hard on getting this out to the,
I-
okay, so
Well, I mean.
I would like to see yours.
that-
That way we know what lies ahead of us, right?
Send it the whole thing.
That's fine. We know what's ahead of us.
Okay, well, no, and so just because I didn't say it tonight, doesn't mean that it's not going to appear in a red line.
Right, okay, all right. Janetta, Mark,
Yeah, which document?
I would go through
The red.
the track changes.
The red line.
The red line policy,
Yeah,
bringing up track changes right now.
it's
It's
the,
And for this kind of detail, I
Fee schedule,
was like, make whoever chose, go chicken, go first.
go to the other document.
Customer service,
The customer service
track
policy,
changes,
yes, not the fee schedule.
yes, got that. And sure.
That's not the track change.
It
is.
Yeah, there's-
Just click on the
lines
on Oh, to get them out. Yep, get them out to the side.
This one right here, right?
Yeah, click on see the bars on the very left. Click on so the changes actually show. There you go. Thank you.
Can you blow it up?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't see that. Sorry. They're like in my 40s. Can you
make
bring,
it full screen?
can you make the full screen, Greg?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we want, we'll just start at the top and go down. When we talk about, okay. Thank you. Start at the top and go down. This is a general section up here. And first of all, it's just the purpose. You'll see it, we only have one change in there. When we talk about the responsibility of work that we do is to provide electric and water service to the residents in our service territory. So we just changed it from Wyandotte County to in our service territory.
Yeah, no, and that's a great change. Thank you for that.
And so in the second paragraph, there are no changes. Is there anything that we would like to discuss about the responsibilities? Okay, then, and just have that.
Oh, no, these are ones that probably, these are ones they're not, I don't consider them to be substantive. Or
So,
controversial, it shouldn't be controversial.
okay, so in 1.02, as you see, there was only one thing we took out. I think you're going to send over what you, okay, so then we go to the privacy policy and just go down to the change where it says where it's stored or transmitted by KCBPU before we had us. And then we require that customers verify the account identity information before we provide information to the customer regarding their service and or account. That's just something that we have in our policies. I think we had a discussion earlier this year and where it may not have been in, it was a good opportunity to add that in. So we added that in there.
Yeah, and on that, I presume that the policy to which we're referring generically as the privacy policy is the one that's on the BPU website. Is that correct? There is a one sentence data security piece in there in the subtext of the policy.
And I believe that it's probably not the same and
Is that the red flag?
That's the red flag.
that's the red flag.
Mhm. Which is what we adopted and it goes off it's one of our SOPs.
Yeah.
So I think I talked
I'm-
about the
I
red flag
think-
identity and theft protection program that we're part of. And those, that's included in there, how we would, protect people's information identity by verifying certain things prior to giving information.
And this is one thing, we all know, the heightened attention given to cybersecurity issues and related issues. And, I think I heard you say that it's a standard operating procedure. This is something I think I don't know that it needs to be here, but it needs to be something that's publicly available to our customers so they understand what it is we're doing to protect their data. That's a recommendation that would make.
Then why not just leave it here? I mean, this is something that the customers are gonna refer to all of these policies.
Oh, you can integrate it in here if you want.
Okay.
It's not.
I
it's
have
not
no
in
issue
here.
with that.
You're talking about the entire private.
Red flag rules
Red
that
flag.
are theft protection.
Okay.
So we make that as a separate document and
then reference it in
The reference.
then we reference it here, but it is a separate document.
Is that a policy or SOP?
Yeah, I think it's an S, please. I'm not sure. Unless we.
I don't think it's a policy because I don't think it came through the full.
It's got the red flag rules and that is part of our
Okay.
standard operating procedures.
If it's not-
Tom, you look like you have maybe.
No, I'm good.
I'm good. Rose, if it's not on the website, then we'll make reference here and then place
The
it out.
privacy policy that's on the bottom of the website.
But I think I'm looking at the mobile version and I'm
Oh,
not,
it's not on there.
I'm not.
I mean, I know I looked it up when I was doing this
Okay.
over the weekend.
Privacy.
Oh,
Wow.
It is there.
It is, but I think you'll want to review that
Yes.
and
It's a good-
you'll understand, I think, where I'm at. So,
Thank you.
So I made a note to reference red flag, make sure it's available, to where it's clearly.
I mean, include a URL, whatever you want to do,
Okay.
right? But just have it available.
Yep, yep, yep.
That's. data privacy data. Okay.
All
So
right.
I'll put a note to look into,
You know, we're taking notes too, so if you can,
okay. So the only other thing, unless you had something between that and the next track change, was that we strive to understand more about our customers to provide better service.
I did have something before that. And so this two sentences, maybe three sentences before that. It says KCBPU may also disclose customer information if it determines that for purposes of national security, law enforcement. Understood. Or other issues of public importance, probably can get to that one. A disclosure is necessary or appropriate. Can somebody give me an example of the latter part of that?
So unified government requesting, like shut off data was one, so they can determine areas in need.
Individual shut off data?
I'll let Lori, I'm not sure which,
I don't think it's personal, I think if it's a business entity. Right, commercial, right?
I think they would want the address so they know which houses are in it.
yeah, I think they do ask for that. So for customer information, account information, if we get a request for a non-residential account under Open Records Act, we have to turn it over. It is discretionary for residential accounts under the Open Records Act. But I know that they do receive law enforcement requests and then just general data requests for accounts, also to help with programs.
We don't provide residential personal information, but non-residential.
But for shut-offs, do you provide, have you provided
We do.
shut-offs?
yeah, we do, yeah. I'm not sure how regularly we do, but we have. So when they were looking at, they were looking at a lot of land bank properties
Mhm.
and requesting, are these properties actually vacant or not? Are these houses? We're trying to see what may be subject to land bank or what may foreclose or something like that. We did have a long conversation with the UG to say, you know, because they asked for all of our disconnected customers. I can give you that today, but probably a number of those customers on that list may be reconnected the same day.
Right.
So we set a threshold of, I don't remember if it was disconnected for a week or longer and gave them that. We did match some of the information, so we're not giving them certainly social security, a lot of other identifiable.
Right, because I think.
Right.
I would believe that the Open Records Act has some nexus with privacy laws,
Right.
right, with PII. So personally identifiable
Right.
information.
Right.
Social security, I mean, we wouldn't
Right, we
share
would-
information like
No,
that.
we don't.
Right, we would take out taxpayer numbers and
Yeah.
that information, correct?
Okay.
And with that list, they didn't have a lot of actual transactions that's taking place on a daily basis. It was more, you know, here's a subset of that may have been off for a longer period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
And then the last sentence in there that you added.
I don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe what I was thinking is,
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the privacy policy section and then
Yeah, that's what, to me,
to
is,
me, it just seems superfluous.
You're talking about strives to understand.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, basically, you're just defending why you have a privacy, why you gather information. And I
So
don't think,
part of our conversation is we're still trying to learn more about our customers,
Mhm.
okay? So if it shows up under policy, privacy policy, or shows up somewhere else, you know, we have certain programs out there because we don't have enough information about our customers. It's hard for us to gauge how well they work. We're requesting updated phone information, other things. Otherwise, some of our other field service operations don't work as well. We don't have accurate phone numbers. So it's just, you know, collecting more customer, and then some of our electric and water distribution planning. You know, a lot of that is come short of, the only thing we know about is the location and an address, okay? But we don't know that much more about what is behind the customer, and it's up to them whether they want to submit that to us. It's just us trying to understand more about our customers so that we can tailor our programs closer to what their needs are.
Yeah, I just don't think that that sentence necessarily fits in this paragraph. I think
Okay.
that, I mean, if you wanted to put it under scope or purpose,
That's
would
fine.
be more fitting, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, basically, what that sentence to me is explaining to the customers who are looking at this policy, why we're asking for this
Right.
stuff.
Right.
The privacy policy is more about, here's how we're gonna protect your stuff.
Okay, we'll look at
Yeah.
other places.
Yeah, just a different place to drop it in, maybe.
Okay, we'll move on to conditions of service.
The first KCBPU, they took the B out on the red line.
Yeah.
Go back in, I think.
I noted that. That will be put back in.
Okay.
So what are we doing there? Putting it back in?
Oh, yeah, on the,
Somehow, yeah,
The
take
B
it
is-
out.
Oh,
Somehow that B got removed.
That'll be put back in. And then below that, we just took out the information for rental location. The property owners and landlords must pay in full all outstanding debts, and we remove that based on the fact of the sentence above that says the customer must pay in full all outstanding debts. Basically, when we say all, it includes that group of people, so we didn't need to specify it out differently.
Yeah,
We just put it all back, so it says the same thing, but we have the sentence above that identifies that it's all.
Okay, and so given the new back bill reference to the statute, the 3-year statute, is that still accurate? That they have to pay all outstanding debt?
So the statute is for 3 years is that you cannot actively collect a debt. We couldn't send it to the Kansas set-off program. We couldn't file a lawsuit or garnish. However, you still can collect the debt. If they come in to sign up, you can still require it because
Yes.
it's not an active pursuing.
So if a customer has a bill from 14 years ago, just as an example,
Right.
that's not something we've written off at any point in time.
So even if it's, in that's an accounting question that I'll let Lori respond to, but we can still, we can still, when they come in and that's on the book, or, that we have evidence of that.
If it's written off, it shouldn't be able to anymore, right?
Right, so that's where I'm gonna defer
Right.
quickly out of my area when I get into accounting.
Right,
So
it
when
is written off, but if they do come back in the service territory or whatever, we would just reverse the write-off.
yeah.
And when account gets written off for the first portion of that, even though the account's been written off, it just means it's gone into our collection process. Write-off is just the word that we use, that we've sent it to our collections agencies to collect. They have a certain amount of time that they can actively collect, and then it is no longer actively being collected on, but it's still written off. So when we say write-off, it doesn't mean that we have written it, but it's in a collectible status with our collections company prior to the fact that they can collect for a certain amount of time. After that, it's still basically on the books, but it comes back into play if someone signs back up for service.
Yeah, we don't absolve the debt.
In Rose,
Yeah.
when we look at, and you kind of combine two things here. One is back billing is one thing. Debt recovery or collection is a different thing, because one could be limited in scope as to how far we can go back.
Mhm.
The other is statute. We can certainly try to collect as far back as we want to or need to, okay? When the example you gave is good. Somebody just walked away and didn't pay their bill.
Mhm.
Versus, okay, here's a malfunction on our system that the customer's not responsible for, DPU's not totally responsible because things happen. But there's a limited amount of time where we can go back and collect.
And I understood the question to be this, based on what's written here, which you were going back to, is must pay in full all outstanding debts prior to accepting service application. So what I was trying to see if you were saying was, if that person who had an outstanding debt and we gave them, let's say, a certain amount of time to pay that, then wanted to start a new service, could they not if they didn't pay that debt in full? So let's say if a person had a back bill, and then we work with them and we're going to give them 6 months, we're gonna give them a year to make payment arrangements and they have not completed those payment arrangements moving to another account, they would still be able to take that debt. So when it says all outstanding debt has to be paid, we would work with them on moving that so that we would still allow them, because we're working with them and that active payment arrangement is on this one account. So we don't say, okay, now that you're going to do, you have to pay that in full. We're gonna work with that customer still going into the new account.
No.
That's what I thought you were asking.
Well,
It's still
first of all,
work with them.
I was not asking that detailed of a question, but thank you, because it was an excellent answer. But now that you say it, I mean, that's not really reflected here.
Yeah.
And so that's something we should reflect here.
Active payment
Just
arrangements
somehow-
will be taken into consideration during application for a new service.
All active payment arrangements are not. In this case, I've been.
That's why I said may, will
Yeah.
be taken into consideration, not be absolved or not be accepted. But it would just be, I think that it needs to be noted that we're aware that there may be active.
Right, because if a person who just had active payment arrangements final the account and move to next, and we final it at whatever that amount is, the arrangements are no longer in play.
Yeah.
At that full amount, if there's a deposit, we apply the deposit and then we discuss, then that has to be paid prior to moving on.
Yeah, but it no longer be an active payment arrangement.
Exactly,
So that's what I'm just saying. I think that putting something in there that mentions the fact that if there's an active payment arrangement already in place and it's being abided by, that's what I would consider an active payment arrangement. If it's not being followed, it is no longer active. They terminate it by lack of participation. So I look at that as if maybe put something in there that just mentions that if there is an active payment arrangement, they would not have to pay that entire amount and to start a new service.
So
What I'm saying
Could it-
is when they final that account, the active payment arrangement stops, so they do not have one.
So
and
it's not-
It's a back bill.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
but
think the word we're looking for is approved, maybe not active, because it wouldn't be an active
Stop
payment. It wouldn't be active, so the customer must pay in full all outstanding debt
Mhm.
or have an approved payment arrangement.
okay, because mine scenario would be,
Also not-
is there anybody that has,
Was that it?
wait a minute,
Yeah, it's like, nope.
That's not, it's they're moving to a different location. And if just with a normal circumstance, when you move to a different location, you are only able to take one current bill. You cannot take anything past due with you that has to be paid prior to you moving. You can just take one current bill, no past due amounts. And what Rose was asking me was about a back bill situation where we've made different provisions. In that case, we can go with something different on that. So that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
and that's what I was trying to address too, is like if I came in and I had a 10-year-old debt and you would not do any sort of arrangements and sign me up, I would have to pay off all of that and I'm asking.
Okay, and so in that case, we can approve paying 50% of that, but the other portion of that is due with your first bill. So we can bring you in, sign you up for service, and you pay a portion of it.
So.
However,
Keep it in mind, okay? We're-
the rest has to be paid off.
On the front page on this, we're adding language. There is a whole payment collection section later on, so if we need to restructure this to where it brings it up closer.
Well, but I do think this highlights the issue of, look, one thing, all of us hear consistently. You hear it, I know you do.
I do.
Board members, you hear it, I know you do. Janetta, you hear it, I know you do. We are difficult to do business. And so, hearing what we do today, and sort of people throwing out different scenarios, right? I mean, and I know there's a million scenarios that can come into play, and so we're trying to put something that encompasses, all of it, or trying to encompass all of it. And your rationale makes sense, right? This is not, this is to try to deal with a back bill situation, not like just a bad debt situation. And that makes sense, but I think one of the things we have to think about is, do we want to see that change? And to your point you made earlier, we do need to see probably the financial impact of thinking about some of these changes.
Actually, what, in this section right here, what I was getting at was, I know that there are people that probably have more than one service area. Maybe own two homes. So if I own a home and I'm in a payment arrangement with you and I want to start a service at a second home, you know, because I'm a landlord or something, do I have to pay off all of this debt before I can start this one? Because I have a payment arrangement that's active and I'm abiding by it. That was my question. And here is that if you have an active payment arrangement that's in good standing, do you have to make all of that payment before you could put in a service application? Any application, whether it's not looking at them moving from location to location, adding a second bill under their name.
They're just adding a second location.
Yes,
This one over here would stay intact. We're going to add this location
Mhm.
because it's a second location. And as long as that payment arrangement is met, because we're gonna deal with this account on that level, we made an agreement, the payment arrangement has to be met. It's if you. And what I was just trying to say is if you're, when I kept saying final the account, that means.
yeah, I understand that.
If
If,
you're here and have this, then yes, so we were all talking about
Yeah.
various scenarios
Yeah.
that we deal with a lot.
mine is just looking at the fact that it says, basically, it says, ifs, ands, or buts out the window, you will pay everything that's outstanding before we'll accept a service application. And mine is, if that's the case, what about, you know, is that true, or are there exceptions to that we need to at least put a note in that says that may, is a good word, that, KCBPU may make adjustments based on, current
But if you get it already on that, and I get it, and
I know,
hear-
may makes it hard.
Well, it makes it seem real subjective.
Yes.
And then also it
And I
seems
don't
like
wanna
you guys
put
are
that in
doing
there,
something unfair, which you may not like or not doing, but that's just what it seems like,
Yeah,
right?
but mine is it should be cut and dry. If I have my house and I got behind and I have a service arrangement with you, a payment arrangement with you, and I'm in good faith on my payment arrangement, I'm making it and paying my bill just like I'm supposed to, and I've got 4 more months on it, and I decide to buy another house and I want to get services in, it's going to be in my name, so therefore I'm putting a service application in, but I have an outstanding debt with the BPU. Am I going to have to pay that outstanding debt to be able to get this service application put in? And if the case is yes, then this is true. If the case is no, in any circumstance, then there's an exception to this. And I just think that we need to think about.
Okay, well, let's think about it because we
Yeah.
brought up a lot of
Yeah.
things that are exceptions and it's gonna be like.
Making a note on that.
Yeah.
I want to go back and have this conversation too.
With,
See.
with staff can make a recommendation on
We're
wording.
not gonna say no.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna think about it.
But you understand
I understand exactly.
what my concern would be.
Yeah, and I don't know that thought was in mind when this was written. Okay, so.
I don't think it was.
Well,
So-
and I think, part of the issue is that we're dealing with a policy that was likely developed in, I don't know, if the form at
70s.
the bottom of it is the year 2016. I don't know if that's the year.
It's just the
That
point.
was the last up.
Here you came onto the board.
But and again, I know it was revisited in 2020, but in 2020, I don't know that like a complete transformation of this document,
Right.
was being entertained.
So I agree. I mean, every time we go back and look, circumstances have changed. We've had a conversation. I've already had conversations on, we're gonna have to make some adjustments, okay? And you'll see part of that, okay? We can't just stay where we are planted 15 years ago, okay? And customer expectation change, this utility needs to think about customer service and make changes where needed, so.
Well, and let's not be afraid to, make little subsections down here. We can maybe handle some of these scenarios, in subsections.
Right, yeah.
Don't be afraid to use a
Yeah.
little A or a little.
Yeah, the underlying sentence where it says all customers must be at least 18 years of age, signed for service. Is it the BPU's policy that anybody that lives at a residence that's 18 or above has to be on that service
If they've signed on the rental agreement, they do. If they've signed the rental agreement, then they have to. If they're just, if we have names and they're just occupants in the house, but if the landlord has them, if they're assigned to that address, then yes, they do.
And I just remember because there was an instance that came up a year ago or so where a lady, her 18-year-old son or 16-year-old son or whatever was on the rental, for some reason was on the rental agreement. And we were requiring that he be on the
Service agreement.
on the account, and she didn't want her minor son or her son who had nothing to do with it to be on that account.
But his name was on, and that's the thing, is if they're gonna have a name on the rental, I mean, they're basically taking. Yeah. But if it's a house, like my wife and mine, there's just one name on the bill. There's not both names on it.
But are both names supposed to be part of the application? Anybody who signs the property agreement, at least that's how I read later in the document.
If you are on the account and there's two people on that account and they both sign, then both parties should be on there. Now,
So like,
Some
so
accounts.
my husband and I, we own our property in joint tenants, right?
Mhm.
Right as fibership. So we're both equal owners of our properties. Should we both be on, meaning as signers of the BPU account?
if that person has authority on that account, then you want that person listed as well on the account. We're going to because when we get into talking about the credit check, which you wanted to talk about, we whatever names are on there, we're going to send both of them, whoever comes back with that credit check, with the top credit check, that's the person that we will make the owner of the account basically as the account holder. And then the other person can be secondary. So we use that in order to make decisions on that account on behalf of the customer as well. Because if there's an opportunity where this comes back this and this comes back this, we can use the one that would give the lesser amount to the customer. And so we always do that. But if there's two signatures, especially on a rental agreement, I'm gonna have to, because I do know people not normally people, if they both have signed the bill of the statement, then most people both ask to be on the account. And so we don't run into a lot of situations where we don't have both the husband and the wife or whoever it may be, they have both signed it and asked for one person not to be on there. So we would deal with that. I don't think I would have to look into that, I'm gonna say, before I just say what I think.
No, sure.
But it's just not most time when we get the closing statement, both names are on there and they both want to be added onto the account.
And it'll come into play when we get to like, when somebody passes away.
That's right.
Yeah,
Which
because
is
I hear a
really
lot,
important.
actually, I've heard a lot of people call me specifically about that, about getting it changed from one name to another. Because their names were not both on the account.
Well, and in that case,
So we'll get to that part.
well,
Yeah, we'll get to that
Yeah,
part.
we'll-
That's gonna be another conversation.
Yeah, we have somebody that's not listed, and then a lot of times we go with what the UG has.
We've had conversations about that. There's some changes in here to help assist people with some of that. The other conversation was if somebody is divorced, okay? And everything was in the husband's name, and then the wife now needs service and don't have proper and adequate credit history. Why are we penalizing her for that? So we're making some adjustments there.
And the other side of the coin is if you have, say, a death in the family and it passes to siblings, we've seen quite a few siblings fights where one claims to have right to the property over another sibling. So in that case, we have to wait for proof.
I mean, as long as somebody's paying the bill.
Yeah.
But often they use it to
Avoid
to
this.
to evict someone or it's a.
Well, we're trying to catch, even though we'll adjust the policy, we are trying to catch people that are trying to avoid paying their bill, okay? And but also be a little bit lenient towards some hardship cases that pop up every so often, trying to provide some temporary assistance to help them get through that. But the bill don't necessarily go away.
Any other questions on the first page? Okay, well, I meant over that section. I'm sorry, that's 2.01. 3.01 just references the electric and water service policy, but because that says supplying electric and water service. So we have conditions and then what we supply and then request for service and discontinuing service is the next one, 4.01. So there were some things taken out at the beginning of that, as you can see.
Um. What was the purpose of taking out that first sentence?
The subject to this policy,
Customers and potentials. Yeah.
because they're subject to all the policies. We said that at this policy outlined 1.02 is this policy outlines the responsibility of KCBPU and the customers of KCBPU in accepting and using timely payment for services. I mean, it's sort of not calling out any certain section that it applies because they all apply.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what said when we were doing it, since it's
Right.
above.
It's redundant.
And yes. it's just-
Since all our policies.
Put that in there for the conditions of service. We're subject to. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Okay.
On the last line of 4.01, I think you're missing the word "the" to determine the credit risk.
So actually, this whole section is
Agreed.
one that I really think it needs to come before the whole, because this is one that the more I think about it. So I understand that the BPU is unique in that our bills can be higher than other utilities in the metro because we also have UG charges on there. So that exacerbates this potential. But the reality is, most utilities have a single, here's your charge to be, have a deposit. Here's a deposit. And I would be much more open to a deposit fee schedule based on the size of the house.
Along those lines, I would be more open to something where the deposit is at least relative to has some nexus between the actual utility costs. in the house.
Yes, a bill. The last 12 months of bills divided by a certain number. I'm just,
I
yeah,
would exclude UG charges, I'm just saying.
no, well, yeah, for
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it should be
utility
electric and
fees.
water.
Yes, that is what we sell.
But because non-residential customers, that's how we treat it. And so we take pieces of, the KCC policy and we apply it there, but we don't apply it in our residential part, and that does not sit well.
Yeah, I just think it's been a long time and this is one that I've mulled over for the last couple of years. And I mean, I know that this one opens us up for an increased opportunity for bad debt. So I don't know whether there is something in a different direction that we do to curtail the amount that could be racked up in bad debt. But I think that our deposit schedule being tied to a creditworthiness is not appropriate.
There are residential policies out there that where they say similar to like non-residential, whether it's 2.5 times or 2 times. Their bill.
But again, when you say that over the past 12 months, it's somebody, you get a deposit when you apply for service at a certain address, moving there, or when you buy that house. So the 12 preceding months is someone else's usage. And so it may not be based on you. If it was that husband, wife, and 3 kids, and now it's just a husband and wife, there's gonna be different variances in that usage that isn't necessarily reflective of this family or this family. And then it could be based on too low. That's why we try to reserve the right to readjust it in 6 months, because if we base it on the husband and wife, and now we have a husband and wife and 3 kids, then they could potentially be a lot higher than what they were using over here, or a single person.
How
So
often
it
do we
depends.
readjust it?
We don't readjust it unless, and this is something that we kind of because of the pandemic didn't do was that if you're given no deposit or a limited deposit, we can go back and we can decide on if it's been no deposit, limited deposit, or your deposit has been, but that's further in here.
I hear you, now, but.
If you can, or if it's been, yeah, okay, well then let's talk. So, or if your deposit has been refunded and we get into this situation where now the account is maybe not an excellent or good account, and we're getting to this week, have the ability to go back and reassess and then determine at that time that either deposit needs to be assessed, deposit needs to be taken up to a higher amount, or those are normally the two things, needs to be reassessed to a higher amount, or we need to have a deposit put on that residence that we did not have before. So now we've got those reports in place where we are going to be looking at that.
But you would only do that in a scenario where they're not making their payments, right?
We would do that.
Well, I don't understand. So
The
if I'm a
deposit,
customer, if I'm a customer for the BPU for 10 years and, I have a deposit and it's 10 years down the road, they're like, you know what, we're going to refund your deposit. You've been a good customer. And I continue as a good customer, but my usage goes up. I don't see why I should have somebody call and say, we've noticed your usage has gone up 50%. You're still paying your bill every month, like you're supposed to.
That's not what we would look at. We would look at disconnect.
I know, but the wording opens
It
it up.
allows you to I'm sorry, maybe I said that wrong, because I said it's further down, so I'm not directly looking at it. But this would be based on your account not being in good standing. It wouldn't be the fact that you're paying it, maybe have some late payment, this or that, but we would look at the fact that of disconnections.
I would prefer.
So I
I
don't know
see.
if you saw that part, but it's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't read through, I've gotten part of the way through this thing. But I haven't-
It's a lot.
But anyway, let me finish my train of thought while I'm thinking.
Uh-huh.
So I would rather see a deposit schedule that is equitable based on, not on creditworthiness. I think that is already starting off the conversation with the customer that we don't trust you. I think it should be based on either something that has, this is your bill, or this is the bill for the last 12 months average from that, and we're going to take a percentage of that, and we may adjust it in the future, because those contingencies where we're going to make adjustments in the future can be handled, further down in subsequent sections where it talks about if you don't stay in good standings with the BPU, you are subject to additional deposit charge. I think that's.
Up the fee schedule.
I think that's the better way to approach this, is like, we're gonna make the assumptions that everybody coming in for application wants to be a good customer of the BPU. And we're gonna have a set deposit charge based on either the square feet of the house, because to me, that makes sense, because it's very easy to gauge, it's,
How do we know that?
don't we know the square footage of most of the residences in?
We don't have it.
No.
That's why. it was
Okay, well then,
Trying to
then
collect more
we run
information.
it off of the last 12 months. We run the bill for the last.
It's a name, an address, and a
Okay,
phone number.
so we'll run the bill for the last 12 usable months of services at that thing, and we'll say, okay, here's the electric and water for the last.
Fee schedule.
I'm working on it.
But,
You already have it open
I think that,
to the right.
that should be our approach, is that we're gonna be very consistent about our deposit schedule. I'm very appreciative of the customers in our deposit schedule, but if you take that advantage of that by not paying your bill, and we'll have to have a specific scenarios for it, that you will be subject to these additional deposit charges, and I think that to me is a better way to handle this than to go off.
Yeah, we've made some adjustment with our fee schedule. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it. Okay,
Yeah, I've looked at the fee.
and the one change was if you don't have any credit, you're subject to the full $400 or whatever that was, $500. Okay, so.
That's due on your first bill.
$375.
So
Which is terrible.
now,
It's 375.
$375. $500 is if you won't. keep it.
okay, so now I want to go with, no credit risk or no credit history. give somebody a chance to at least establish that, okay? And the example I use is your daughter just moved out of your house, got out of college, she got a job, she's trying to get an apartment for the first time. Why hit her with this?
$375
Right,
versus the $225. And then, I mean,
but,
I didn't want to go to the fee schedule because section 1E, late payment fee, 5% of outstanding
well,
bill.
you're talking about deposits, so that's why I'm trying to show you,
Yeah.
you know, here's where we are. Now, what's in here too is, okay, if you do become a credit risk, and if you are a habitual bad payer and you're getting disconnected, then we have to put you on some type of deposit.
And I understand that.
Okay.
But I don't like the starting it off with the credit risk. Telling a customer walking in the door that wants to have service with us, you're a credit risk. We're going to charge you extra because you're a credit risk. I understand the reason behind it. I know that it opens up the opportunity for additional debt, bad debt. But I think that,
So we'll have to take a look at what.
yeah, I think that that's something, I think that this is a very deep conversation.
But I know, and we'll have to analyze it to see what the financial impact. is.
Yeah, I just think that it's a deeper conversation that needs to have. I mean, I understand all the reasons behind why we do what we do, but you know, this is
I
one,
can't
this is
think
one.
of any business that don't do a credit check. If you're signing up for service, whether it's a utility, credit card.
Hard or soft check.
Huh?
Hard or soft check.
Yeah,
So
I don't know,
I agree.
I don't know very many utilities that use that to determine what your deposit's gonna be.
We don't.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
all the rest of the utilities around here
I'm
are
looking-
governed by the KCC rules, which.
Yeah, well, so
Fees.
every G will allow you to sign up for service with no deposit. As soon as you become a bad paying customer, they're gonna ratchet that up to as high as they can take it, okay?
And I don't want to go, I don't think we have to go that far, but I have no problem with having a lower threshold for the deposit to get a customer going, because that is one of the biggest things that I hear from people is how expensive it is to start an account at the BP.
So my question is, other than no credit or no credit risk, no credit history, what else do you want to put into that zero category?
Well, and that's the thing, I think that, this is why I mean,
I know.
And we made it through the first page.
We did make page one, or page two, but these are things that unfortunately require, you know, more discussion, and so
If you want to look at blocking out a larger.
I would be very open.
I'm retired. I've got nothing but time.
Is it?
I wish I could say that.
So,
I will say that, but by the time I say that, I'll be stepping on.
okay, so CBD, we have stopped at 4.01. We've not gotten very far through that. So this is only the best at stopping. So I remember.
Stop. We're not.
And do I have to adjourn?
Oh, we should probably.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn the policy committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
The moved in section, roll call please.
Roll call, Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
You know, I want so bad to say name. Say name. Aye.
Groneman.
Hey.
So.
Motion still carries.
Whether it will carry or not. So, because if we don't, yeah.
This first session is adjourned.
Thank you.
Second session. Sure. That's next.
Yeah, now we're working into the work session.
I don't know. So
Then you're used to it on the other side of it.
By the time they said, you can't make a motion and then vote against it. Yeah.